YouTube, Brian Phillips. We have a box. This one we've done a few times, but I think it's new and exciting. So we're gonna find out right now, and I'm excited because I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it's like, and it's good. So don't read the side and don't respond to the thumbnail yet.
Don't read the title.
I can't wait to see it. Here we go. Hopefully I haven't totally given it away, but I probably did by the thumbnail. Oh yeah, it's a P-51. Look at this fancy dance right here. Oh yeah. Cripes Almighty? Cripes Almighty? I don't know what that is. But yeah, so it's a new livery on the P-51D from e-flite. So we're super excited to be able to bring you this. Looks like it's blue and silver. And of course, the previous one was the June night, which was like a black and white finish on the front. Was there any other? I know it's kind
of like a army green and silver.
Yeah, there was, yep, that's right. Yeah. We did have the olive drab on the front.
Yes.
So this one looks like it's mostly blue and silver and black. So let's see what it looks like. That looks totally sweet. Obviously, this is one of our favorite warbirds. And the P-51, I know some of you guys are probably thinking another P-51. Well, the truth is, it's the same exact P-51. They just updated the livery, which is pretty cool. And I believe in terms of all the rest of it, it's just got the newest, latest and greatest smart technology, which if you have the latest version of the June night, I believe you had that as well. But there was earlier versions of the June night that had the AR-636, if I remember right, as opposed to the 631, which is the newer version. So we're gonna unbox this thing and build it today. And then obviously, if you wanna watch it fly, we have that published right before this anyway. Okay, now please forgive the opened appearance of the box. This one probably was opened. And as you can see, by the way, tape's already been ripped free, so we got a manual there, which is nice. And we're just gonna keep sliding this out. Some of these early releases go to the factory first. They do some quality checks and they do quality assurance things and they do some testing and things like that. And then we get them for early samples and we put together the videos. So as you can see, we'll just put that in the background. Obviously, we're gonna set it up with the NX8 today. And we'll probably prefer to fly it on the 4S 2200 Gen 2. Okay, so this is gonna be a 2200 4S 30C. Should be fine for this battery. You can also use a 3S, because this is 3 and 4S compatible. 3 and 4S compatible motor. Obviously, we got the smart technology, the ESC, everything is sized for that bigger 4S configuration. But our experience with the P-51 is that 4S 2200 is a great size and it's where you're gonna wanna be. Okay, so we've got the prop, standard paint on the tips. This is a 10.58 4 blade. And we're gonna just go ahead and get it all opened up. All right, the standard drop tanks, we've seen that before, looks just like before. They slide in and out real easy. I don't generally fly with the drop tanks on the P-51. In my experience, I like the way it flies with or without, but I just prefer the way it looks clean. The wing looks exactly the same. In fact, if you end up with one of these planes and you have a problem, it does look like the guns are painted black on this one, but I think they might have been painted black on the last one. If you ever end up with one of these planes and you have some sort of a failure and you decide you want to replace the wing, I think they might be all interchangeable. And that's ironic because I think I have a replacement wing downstairs. There might be a little bit of a difference on the liveries because some of them have the stripes on the top and the bottom, if I remember right. The invasion stripes like that are on the bottom of this one. Okay, so continuing onward, we've got a little wing joiner here. Just kind of working in the order of how I see them. That's gonna go on the horizontal stabilizer. Carbon fiber, okay. Horizontal stabilizer and elevator here. Looks pretty straightforward. Yours is probably not gonna be buckled up like that because this has already been assembled and then disassembled. As you can see, the elevator connects together and then that reinforced hinge. Is that reinforced? It looks like it's just a pinch hinge, but I honestly can't tell. We've never had a problem with these hinges on this echelon of plane. We have had problems with pinch hinges on some planes, but not ever on an E-flite plane. I feel like there should have been something in there. Oh, there is.
Underneath.
There's a bag of goodies, nut and bolt sack. Okay, so I'm gonna stuff that back in so I don't go back in there again. And then the spinner is right here, so I'm just gonna cut the tape. Okay, so this is one of the areas where I've been disappointed with color match before, so we'll see if it is a good color match. That's kind of like a baby blue. So we're gonna wait until we see the blue on the fuse to make our final judgment. Just pulling these plugs out. We have foam to protect the foam. Always with these E-flite planes, everything is well packaged. We got foam to protect the foam and the different plastic bits like on the exhaust nozzles here. So you're gonna tend to have the best crack at having a plane without damage show up at your door. Oh, that is so sweet. Looks amazing. Let's check the color match. That's a really good color match.
Good.
This one's got a shine to it though. And this one's got a shine to it and that doesn't. So I think we're really close. This is definitely painted plastic, but it is white on the base as you can see from where the overspray is. So that would be, it is a really, really close match though. But it's definitely not matte and this is matte. So I would like to see those the same. But otherwise, just amazing lines. Scale details are beautiful on this plane. Decals are well applied, not lots of curling and peeling, which we have seen on a certain variety of planes before. Looks like these decals with the split, that's a nice split. Very nice, very clean. Not lots of mold release lines. We got these little bumps like this. There's just a very few of them here. A little bit sloppy on the top there where the molding goes together like this. Not a big issue for me. Okay, so what we're gonna do next, and as you can see, that's literally everything.
Wow.
So very low piece count on this plane. And if you're gonna have a plane that you're gonna take apart and put away and then take back out, which honestly, I can't conceive of a time when I would want to take a 1.2 meter apart and put it back together unless you live in a really small place like a boat. We have at least one person that lives in a boat, if you're watching. Then you might want to take it apart. But otherwise, I would say a 1.2 meter is a very good size class. You don't have to worry about those sort of things because the planes are not so overly obnoxiously big.
Yeah.
And a 1.5, believe me, is about double the size of this plane. So the 1.2 meter, and by the way, I love the way the 1.2 meter flies. I've never been a huge fan of the way the 1.5 meter flies. It's a lot harder to fly. So that being said, we're gonna build this next. One point that I'm not crazy about on this decal is right here. I wonder if I can just rub it to get it to stick better. See how that white kind of backdrop
comes through?
It is kind of rubbing in there though.
Yeah.
See, it's going away.
Your Blondie, was that a 1.2?
Yeah, my Blondie with the red nose
Yep.
was one of my favorite. But this has Safe Select and AS3X, whereas the Blondie only had AS3X. That was before the time where every bind and fly plane, essentially, that came out from Horizon Hobby, which would be in the E-flite line, that was before they came with Safe Select on almost every plane. And so that was an early moment for us. It was also one of my second or third planes.
I was gonna say that was very, very early on.
Very early.
Yeah.
That's right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab this robot plane stand. There's nothing special about this. This is probably about a $20 tool. We had one of our subscribers send that as a gift to us, which was really nice because he got tired of me destroying my wife's Afghans
Yes.
with airplanes, which is ironic because we did that with the Blondie.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where I cut the hole.
Yep.
So, all right, so we've got this plane. We're gonna set it upside down here. We're just gonna start the assembly right now. It's such an easy build. It's gonna take like no time to put this thing together.
Yes.
And so we're gonna do it right now. I think I wanna put the tail on. We'll put the prop on. You guys can wait to put the prop on if you're concerned about safety, which is not a bad idea. The elevator control horn is gonna go on the side where the control horn sticks out. You wanna show them that? See this? So we're just gonna slide that in. And it just goes in. Now I'm not gonna actually insert that yet. We'll do that in a minute. And then I always seem to try to forget that. Just line that up and then slide it in. And then I'll just walk that in very carefully so we don't get a lot of crushing on the foam. Now that that is together, we can flip the plane back over. Lay it on the plane stand, and we got 2 screws to insert. So we'll go back over to the nut and bolt sack. Pop that open. And we're showing you this in real time today. We're not gonna do any editing. We don't generally edit our videos. We might pause the video if somebody calls and I have to answer a phone, or if the kids need something, but generally speaking, we don't really do much editing on Brian Phillips RC. It's all long format. So we've got 1, 2 screws. This one's definitely been assembled, I can tell from just the dirtiness of the tips. So what we're doing is we're just reassembling it. So hopefully there isn't like decals and things like that that we are supposed to be putting on that we're not aware of. That would be highly unusual for a bind and fly.
We hardly ever put on decals.
So we got a Phillips tip. Don't know why these ones are Phillips tip, and they're very large tips. So like this long handled precision screwdriver is working terribly. So I'm actually gonna go to a thicker Chinese tip. We had the same problem the other day when we were doing the electrics. Was that what it was called? The erratics.
The erratics.
There we go, not the electrics. It's the erratics. That Chinese screwdriver worked better for this. Phillips is just sometimes you don't always have a great place to press hard against to make purchase. And so those hex drive screws are a little easier for us, but that didn't give me any problems once I got a bigger tip. All right, so then coming back over, we've got obviously the spinner. Our cat's trying to go through the box and the other half of the spinner that I dropped on the floor. Why don't we do this before we actually assemble the wing? It'll be easier to do this. Okay. Now, keep in mind, when you do put a prop on a plane, it's considerably more dangerous because the prop can cut you. If you're new to the hobby, the 2 ways that people get hurt in this hobby, generally speaking, are lipos and props. Props can cut you. When they spin, they're spinning very fast, they're very powerful, and they can definitely hurt you. So please be careful. We show putting this together, but you wouldn't have to put it together. You could actually wait till the end to do this. That little texture goes along the texture on the side of this prop adapter. So you just start by sliding that on, pushing it back.
That's a good fit.
Okay. Then the prop goes on like this, a little bit of texture, hardly any, goes up against that. And then this goes on, very simple. It's got a hole that goes through it. Okay, so just get that finger tight. I'll just take that same Chinese screwdriver that I was using. See, it's a little bit too big, so I'll have to find a different Chinese screwdriver that's a little bit smaller. This is actually a German screwdriver now. And I'm gonna hold this but not get cut. I'm just gonna torque this down. Pretty easy stuff. Once that's done, I can take this. This is the spinner. Slide that over. This is a Phillips tip, which is kind of strange. We're gonna take the Phillips tip, slide it on our screwdriver, and then just walk this in. Now, how do I know that's the one for the spinner? The reason I know it's for the spinner is because the nature of the screws that come in this kit, there's 4 screws for the wing, 1, 2, 3, 4. You may actually get 1 additional spare screw in your kit. Okay, we're just gonna torque that down. Okay, very good. So there you have it. So that's a really nice match. And by the way, if you notice that on your airplane, instead of the prop just being totally perpendicular to the fuse, it's gonna tend to be pointed down and to the right. And that's to help with the torque effect of the airplane. So you'll notice that the plane that it's sitting on is gonna be something, I'm exaggerating, it's something like this, okay? Okay, so we had to evacuate the premises of our cat that was being really annoying in the background. She was playing in the box. Okay, so we're gonna flip this thing over. I did stick the antenna in. That was not a very wise maneuver, but it is in there anyway. Okay, so we're gonna pull this like that. And then as you see, there's an opening here. It goes right into the top. And then if I were to push, the canopy would pop off. Okay, see that? So I'll just pull the canopy off while it's underneath. And then I can take these. Now yours are gonna be taped down. Ours was taped together. But you can see that there's a Y cable that goes to the gear. You can see how the color goes to the color. So if it's brown, it'll go to a brown. If it's orange, it'll go to orange. And the red will be in the center, so it's always gonna go to red. Same thing with the flaps. Same thing with the ailerons. So there's 3 pairs of cables, and they're all wired together. Okay, so just pull those down. We're gonna drop those into this cavity. And this is a little bit tricky because you gotta do all that, and then you gotta feed this down. And there is no key on the front, it goes to the back. And you'll note that it wants to bite right here, which I'm not a big fan of, but I don't know that you can do it without biting that piece of foam there. So now I also want to take my fingers and pull the excess down. And that's going to allow me to seat the wing back into the pocket. And as I work this, then it falls down in. And that's where our 4 screws are going to go. But before I do any more, I'm going to take my fingers and support the wing and flip this plane over. And I'm going to come over here and just show you from the top. 1, 2, and 3. And you can see the AR-631 there. And then this safety thing and all that, we're gonna cut that off in a second here because I don't want that in the way. And just laying this back down. Now we can put the 4 screws in. We also have a bind plug that's included, but of course in our case, we'll be using the bind button. But it is nice that they include the bind plug in case you're using some sort of alternative technology. Okay, there's 1, there's 2, and these are hex drive. There's 3, and there's 4, and I believe those are 1.5 millimeter, but we're gonna find out about 10 seconds here. Nope, looks like a 2. So 2 millimeters. We use this driver here. These also were provided by Tom, thanks Tom. It's been a long time since you provided these, and we've used them hundreds of times.
Yep.
You see that pucker that starts? That's when you know that you are really getting it. And I'm looking for a darkening of the pucker, okay? See? The shadows on the pucker get darker because it's silver, okay? Then back here, same thing, and you're like, boy, that pucker is not a very good look for that. I agree. But you know what? You won't notice, and it will not be a factor once you get this thing on its wheels. You'll never notice it again, I promise. So easy.
I know.
But then again, this one's been built, so it's like I don't want to overplay how easy it is to put together because I think sometimes the first time that you line up the screws, they don't always line up as good.
But it's still not a hard, I mean, it's...
No, it's like so easy. This plane is built.
7 screws total.
This plane has been built.
Yeah.
And it's like a 12-minute video.
Yeah.
So for Brian Phillips RC, that's very fast.
17 and a half, but still
17 and a
fast.
half? Shoot, 12 minutes of it was just me talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Scissors. Whoops. Oh, dang. Oh, shoot.
Always
Cut that.
off.
Always falls off like
understand that.
every time I put scissors in there and cut it. Okay, so now the next step, I'm gonna just be careful not to hit that tail wheel, and I'm just gonna put this up here. I don't like to put that prop anywhere where it's gonna bind up, just in case I make a mistake or there's something wrong with our radio setup and it starts to spin. I don't want it to chop off of the stand and cause a problem. And now I can twist this whole plane down so you guys get a good look at what I'm doing. You can see I've got gear, I've got ailerons, and I've got, this is a programming cable for the Smart ESC, and there's flaps. Okay, so now I can guess and check, but I'm not sure if I want to guess and check. Yeah, I'm just going to guess and check. We're going to guess and check today. So brown is going to go the same side as brown here on the elevator and rudder, so it's going to be toward me and not towards you. So on channel 6, let's just throw caution to the wind and stick it into 6. Because channel 5 is probably going to be our gear. And you're like, how do you know that, Brian? Just because we've set up a bunch of these planes. But you can also look in the manual. It will explain all the details. If I'm wrong, I apologize in advance. Okay, so brown is going to go toward the nose of the plane, toward me. I'm going to slide that in between the flap that I just plugged in, and then it looks like it's right next to the elevator. So that'd be on channel 5. Now channel 2 would be for ailerons in this case. And the brown is going to go toward the front again. And again, if you were to do this as a plug-in fly, we have done tons of plug-in fly planes, but I don't recommend it for beginners. And please, if you're a beginner, just because it's cheaper on the list price does not mean it's a better fit and not a better value necessarily. This receiver is expensive. It's like over $100. So if you're buying this plane as a bind and fly, you're getting a $100 receiver included. So my recommendation, as usual, is to get the one that's the most complete as you can afford and then go with it. Now, also, I want to talk about this. This is a tray that we've seen historically on these P-51s. This is how the battery is going to go in, which is really nice. It makes it easy to load and unload your battery. If you have a brand new battery, it's going to fit nicely. If you have a really used up and abused battery, it may not fit as good. And so let's just get right down to it. The nicer batteries are going to tend to be more sleek and square and tight on the edges, which is going to help. If you get a really bad puffy battery, you may not want to use it forever anyway, but I'm going to give you an example of what you shouldn't. Your battery should not look like this. This is what happens when you abuse the heck out of them like I've done. And what I'm going to do is, and when I say abuse the heck out of them, what I mean is like fly for 20 minutes when you should fly for like 6. So I'm just going to show you, even on a 2200 4S. Now you can do bigger batteries, but my suggestion is to start with 2200 4S. And the interesting part is they've already adjusted these straps probably, but normally all you have to do is just feed this strap through that little opening there. And that's going to give you the ability to kind of pull this through and cinch it down. So you can get a really tight fit. Now also, you see this little rail here? There's like a raised lip. If you look at that raised lip on top and bottom, that's what it guides it. But what's going to happen is the Velcro catches these little tabs and they'll break. So if you try to fly with a bigger battery, you may need to leave this tray out, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run this strap through the doohickey as well. This is the doohickey here.
It's the technical term.
The technical term.
But you don't have to put Velcro on your batteries and stuff with
which
those.
is nice. Now I happen to have Velcro on this battery, probably because we were using it in the F14 Tomcat. Amazing. Okay, we're just going to slide this back in here. And as you can see, we are starting to get some resistance. So if you get resistance, find out why before you continue. Make sure you're not ripping anything out. I don't think I am. I'm feeling a lot of resistance though. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. This is a Gen 2 pack, so you'll notice there's only a discharge lead with a data line. That's an IC3 connector. Now this plane does come equipped with an IC3 connector, just so you know. It's not an XT60. So if you have an XT60 equipped battery, you're going to have to use at least an IC3 or an EC3 adapter. There we go. Gosh, I don't like that. That feels like it's going to break something. What am I bound up on?
If you tighten your battery enough, does it like deflect those little rails that it guides on?
I wonder if that's what's going on. Because like if you take a look at this thing is really bound up in there. So I pushed the battery forward here, so it's up toward the motor mount, and it's just really stuck in there, guys. I've never had one get stuck quite this bad because like I said, I've done this plane 5 times, I think. Once so. For the Blondie, 3 times for the June Knight, plus Esteban's.
Yeah.
We did Esteban's too.
Yeah.
But I just can't get this thing to pull out. So I don't know why it's stuck. We're gonna take a close look and then give you a report. Oh, there goes. So, you remember how I told you with the bigger battery, you may run into some problems. So now let's show you what it's like from the F14. As you can see, we got the little Velcro strip there. I hate Velcro on batteries. Look how much smaller this is gonna be. And I just want you guys to see the difference in fit, because that was terrible. Like, I don't know why it was so hard to get in there, but it was obviously catching something somewhere. And it's quite difficult to tell what we were catching. So we show you this stuff on Brian Phillips RC so you can make up your own mind as to whether or not you think a plane is going to be a good fit for your needs. If you want to help support us, buy it from the links in the video description below. We have tons of other planes too if you don't like this particular one. Okay, so we're going to try this again now. Just slip it in, line up those grooves. Do you guys see the difference?
So if you have been thinking that you need a new 2200 4S,
get one for the F14,
one with the plane.
And then you can use it for this plane too. So I just wanted you guys to see how much different that was. Now that was not just for camera. That was like really actually hard. I was like afraid that I wasn't gonna be able to get it out of there. And then I'm just gonna show you a 3S. Okay, so just to give you a comparison, really worn out, abused, used and abused crashed many times, over discharged, all the things you're not supposed to do. And then I want to show you what a newer 3S 2200. Here's a newer 3S 2200, maybe a little bit of use and abuse. This is a 50C pack. We'll feed that lead through and we'll just show you that that fits just fine too. That's a 2200 3S in a 50C, which is a little bit longer than a standard 30C. Now, if you have this extra, I found that a good way to deal with that is to just flip it and tape it back to itself. Okay. This is so much easier than doing it inside the planes though. And we've said many times, and I'll say it again a million times, a plane that's hard to put batteries in is a plane that you will fly less. And you won't believe me until you get a couple and then you have a choice and you're like, okay, well, by the time I get the battery in, the sun's gonna be down or whatever. Okay, so that's 3S. As you can see, goes in no problems. Also, you can get it out. So what's the moral of the story? If your battery is too big for this opening, if you can go vertical, you can also buy some space. But what happens is it's the thickness here. It's the girth that really gets you. And when those straps and that Velcro starts to go out and overlap that, it will stop that thing from going in and it'll stop it from coming out. So we're gonna switch back out to the 4S and we'll come right back. Okay, so we're just gonna slide this battery back in. If you guys get freaked out by the fact that I am like in the other side of the room after we unpause the videos, we don't mean to dissatisfy, but at the same time, we have like crap sitting all over the place here. I always want to clean it up. So our next step is going to be radio setup. Now, you guys come to the channel for radio setup. I know a lot of you guys need help, and that's why we do this with the NX8. We've been considering going to an iX14 or staying with the NX line and going to an NX10 because we have now on 3 different airplanes, 3 different occasions, run out of channels. That is an unusual thing, and so when people ask about radios, what radio do I get, Brian? Well, if you're gonna be flying DSMX, DSM2, which would be any of the lineup from Horizon, essentially, not 100%, but like 99% of the stuff you get from Horizon is gonna have DSMX or DSM2. Every once in a blue moon, they'll have like a ready to fly. We did a helicopter not too long ago that was a Futaba FHSS, and they did do like in the Mini Apprentice, which is probably not one of the most popular planes we've ever reviewed. That one had an off-brand receiver as well, but that was in a ready to fly. There was also, I think there might've been a Vapor that was in an off technology connection too. It was a 2.4 gigahertz. But either way, my whole point is, if you wanna do this, you can do hundreds of planes. I mean, I have a large memory card in there that's right here. There's also another memory card on board. And I do, full disclosure, run a bigger battery, which is the 6,000 milliamp 3.7S, or 3.7, so it's like a 1S lithium ion pack, I believe is what it is. But that thing will run this transmitter for weeks to month, you know, for me, and I fly a lot. So, and then I just charge it periodically when I see the voltage getting low. If you're in the market for an NX8, I just want you to do the math, because the Hall Effects gimbals on the 10 make it a lot more expensive and you only get 2 more channels. The trouble is when you go from the 6, which is 6 plus like a switchable channel for 7th channel, you get so much more in the 8. And so we stopped almost immediately recommending the 6 when we went to the 8 because we realized for like 50 or 60 bucks more, you're like crazy to not just get this. But when you throw in another $50 battery to go up to a bigger battery, you get dangerously close to the price point of the 10, which comes with the bigger battery. So we're getting to the point now where if we run into a situation, a circumstance where we end up finding ourselves with the NX10, we don't want you guys to think that we're abandoning you. The NX6, NX8, NX10, they're all gonna set up almost exactly the same. So we wanna share that with you, just let you know we've been thinking about you in that. If you have comments about it, leave it in the comments below. We are reading them, we are taking them to heart. We haven't made up our mind. You know, Horizon has offered to have us do the iX14, but the thing is, like, I'm torn. I don't necessarily want to abandon people in the NX8 crowd, the NX6, the NX10, because it's such a good transition from the DX to the NX. And I started with the DX8 myself, and then I went to the DX18 in my first computerized transmitter. Before that, I had DX5E and 4X, or it was a DX4 and a DX5 kind of at the same time. Because we got the Delta Ray. it was a ready to fly. That was one of the first planes we did. So, and I loved it. It was an amazing plane. And that was back in the days when we weren't working with anybody. It was just super fun. It was just small time gig. Our living room, we had like 4 planes. I thought I was just like an amazing, crazy person. Pan left to right.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna set the radio, and sorry to get on a side tangent there, but it's just kind of weird whenever we do these like re-releases, and it's now like the 3rd revision of the plane that we are currently reviewing. That's pretty cool. It's actually the 4th because there was a V2 on the June 9th. So that's actually
that's right.
1,
that's why we did that.
Then 2, then 3, then 4, and we've done 2 of the June 9ths plus Estebans.
And the June 9th is when the NX lineup came out.
Yep, that's right. Actually, the June 9th, we released the
With
NX6.
the 6.
And then with the June 9th V2, we released the NX8.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's right. I just remembered that. That's
I didn't
so cool.
remember that they both were
I'd
out.
forgotten that.
Yeah.
Oh man, we should have done the iX14 with us.
Oh.
Dang it. Now I'm kicking myself. Anyway, all right, getting back to the point, maybe for V2. So for now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up the radio setup. We have the battery loaded. It's a 4S 2200 30C Gen 2. So we've just got the regular discharge lead. We're gonna put the ordnance on it, which is just actually, in this case, not ordnance, it's just drop tanks. By the way, speaking of ordnance, back in the day, there were some missile pods on the P-40, which was super, super cool on the Razorback. And I just love the way that those things look. And I know Esteban, my friend, has those somewhere, but I wonder if they would slide in because they have the same rail configuration. And that's another thing too that I've been noticing on these airplanes, because we have a lot of them. Most of the ordnance does not fit from one plane to the next. And it drives me crazy why Horizon and FMS and all the different big competitive brands are not making this stuff interchangeable. I mean, it's a toy, for God's sake. I want to be able to play with it. So we have tons of ordnance that I rarely use them, but I still want to be able to interchange them because that would be super cool.
It's just crazy that they're making them all independent.
I know,
for
like why
every
would you not
single
make the
plane?
same
Like, figure
connection
out.
style? Well, I mean, and I understand there's gonna be some physical limitations, but ironic story about drop tanks. I once dropped this on top of a federal building. And then the guy that worked at the federal building got it back to me, just so you guys can get off my case about flying over federal buildings.
Because you liked watching you fly.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I also crashed another plane into that building when I lost radio signal.
You say federal building like...
It wasn't like the federal building.
Right, yeah.
It was a federally owned building.
Right, yeah.
Which we had permission to fly over.
Right.
And I also had a drop tank I dropped. We announced it as a bomb. Don't do that. And that was also before it was against the rules to do that. So anyway, all right, so the radio's turning on. Obviously, we're not turned on this plane yet because we need to make the profile, which we're gonna do right now. By the way, we're on 3.08. Hopefully there's no more bugs that come out, but there was like 3 updates that happened really in close proximity.
Yeah.
There were some warnings that came up if you haven't updated your firmware or if you updated to 3.07. There was 2 that came out within like the course of 4 or 5 days. Then there was some lasting, precariously annoying issues I guess people were having. We were fortunate, we didn't have a lot of them. We just had like a green screen that came up for a few seconds and then disappeared. So they have fixed that all on 3.08 beta BD or something.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything.
So what we're gonna do is we are going to start a new model. We can't show this necessarily yet. I think it's going to be released, but just to be safe, I'm gonna go to add new model and I'm gonna go to acro, you can show now.
Okay.
So we wanna create a new model that's the acro type. Now keep in mind, this is gonna be identical, I believe, in configuration to our previous P-51 Mustangs. And the reason, and it does take a long time when you have a lot of models, it takes longer and longer, I've noticed. So that's fine. So model select would take you back to where we came from. Model type we've already set as an acro. If you reset that, it's gonna reset your model. Model name, this is where you would type it in. So this is our 134th model. And yes, my numbering is kind of screwed up on here, so it might actually be more than that. Because there's, yeah, it renumbers. It took my old NX6 stuff and then it renumbered. So I don't know, whatever. It is what it is.
Close-ish
We're close
to that.
So then we'll scroll this in real quick. I'm using the legacy keyboard. You can change that in system setup. If you like it to be the new style scrolly keypad, you can do that too. But we'll be back when we're done typing. All right, so I had to compromise a lot here. P-51 Mustang Blue, spelled wrong, 1.2. This camera creates it. So that's the name, aircraft type. It's already got the correct wing type, except we need to add flaps. So 1 aileron, 1 flap. And then basically I'll select an image. Standard image, there should be a P-51 in here, so we'll just set it to the P-50, there it is. Okay, cool. And then we'll go back, and then there's, I don't know if we're gonna have to do a flight mode, but I think we usually do on bind and flies. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up a flight mode. I'm gonna set, okay, so let's talk about this for a sec. This will be my landing gear, this will be my flaps. I know they tell you to use switch D, but I use switch B because I can get to it easier. And then this is where I'll put my safe select. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that assignable to switch D. And then what I can do is you can actually name those here, or you can go spoken flight mode, one skip down, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna go flight mode 1, 2, and 3. So one of them is gonna be safe select on, or safe on, one's gonna be off, and then one's gonna be AS3X, and then we'll see how that works. So first thing you can do is you can type it in. So if you highlight, we'll just show you the first couple steps of these. Cancel, cancel, clears it, and then we'll scroll in, save. Well, actually, this will be AS3X up here. And this does not make the assignment now. This is just naming it, and then also making an audio event tied to the change in condition here. So the event of going from this position to this makes an audio event happen. And the switch position from here to here makes an audio event happen. That simultaneously changes the displayed name that will display about here on the screen. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like and each of the steps as we go, so just stay tuned. Okay, so now we typed in AS3X. So now you might wanna type the word stabilizer or something like that if you want, but this is AS3X, Artificial Stabilization 3-Axis. That's right, they use X to describe the word axis. That's right, they don't know how to spell very well. Yeah. That's okay. So we're gonna scroll down, way down to about here, and then we'll set up the audio event, and I'll show you when we get to the right one. Okay, so here we go. AS3X mode. Okay, so then you can test it. AS3X mode. Okay, and then this one's gonna be the middle set, so it's probably gonna be off. So I'll go ahead and highlight cancel, cancel, and then type the word off and come right back. All right, so we have the word off, and then spoken. We'll scroll down and show you what we put for that. So there's off, and then there's also silence. Okay, so I'm gonna do off. AS3X mode, off. And then this one we'll set to safe. Now this doesn't make the assignment, just to be clear. It's just the audio event and what displays on the screen. Later we'll make the assignment to the flight mode, and I'll show you how to do that as well, so we'll be right back. Okay, so the safe, and then we'll set the audio event, which is again, way down here. Okay, so safe mode, select it and test it. Okay, cool. Now, just keep in mind, these are only labels. They are not actually any activity. Now in channel input configuration or channel assign, I'm gonna change B off of auxiliary 2 because I don't want it to automatically be assigned to this switch, okay? Because that's gonna be for flaps in a minute. Now walking into the regular screen, you'll see our transmitter voltage, our throttle position, and then you're gonna see AS3X. Off. Safe mode. AS3X mode. Off. Safe mode. AS3X. Pretty cool, huh? But again, that's just a label. Okay, then we're gonna go into our throttle cut. We're gonna turn that on. Switch H. And then -100. But let's go ahead and pop open the manual now and just verify they don't have some weird setting they want us to put for that. Okay, looks pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, looks pretty straightforward so far. Okay, here we go. So here's your transmitter setup. And it looks like they want throttle cut at -100. Good. There was a time when they were having us run 130. I don't know why, but whatever. You can also set up a delay. We never do that. So throttle cut's on. You can look down here. You can see it says -100 and it's not changing throttle state by moving the stick. Now when I unlock it, it works. Very good. Throttle cut's back on. Now we're going to go to flap system. We're going to switch to the switch, highlight it, and then move the switch B. Then we're going to make our assignments as per the instructions, which are 100, 0, and -100. They say to use switch D and a 2-second deployment speed with no elevator flap. Okay. So in that case, I am going to go +100. Okay, then I go 0, then I go -100. Okay, now that we're there, I'm gonna go, let's do 8. And let's do 6 and 9. What do you say?
Sure.
Speed 2. All right, so then mixing, we're not gonna mix anything, but if you were a newer pilot and you wanted to try to help coordinate your turns, you could go in here to rudder and aileron. So aileron, you could set that to a switch, or you could just make a mix. And what would happen is, as you move your aileron, your rudder would automatically deploy some as well. But I don't like doing that anymore. I did that a lot when I was a newer pilot, and I've just gotten away from it. So, all right, so timer. Do they say a timer recommendation here? Let's look at this.
They do not, unless it's back on the very first page with the battery recommendation.
Okay, here's a warning. I've never seen this warning printed. It says, never assign auxiliary 2 to safe during transmitter setup with any model. If safe select is assigned to aux 2, the throttle channel motor will reverse in flight once safe is enabled. Motor reversing is assigned to aux 2, channel 7 by default on smart ESCs. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll get to that a little bit later. And I'm going to go into dual rates and expo. I'm going to do my standard setup, which always has served us well, at least as a beginning point. So 5 for the first setting, then 10. Now remember, this is highly subjective. You may not like the way I do it, and that's totally fine. You can do more, you can do less, you can do none, but this is going to give you an idea of what I do, okay? So that's where I'm going to start. If I need less, I've got less. If I need more, I've got more, and also reducing my rates from 100 to 90. Okay, now we just copy that to all 3 of the axis, because that's the way I like to start all 3 of them. And I found it to be a very good starting point. And then if you hand off the transmitter to maybe a lesser experienced pilot, they can switch to a little bit more expo, dampen the controls some, or you can pass it off to a more experienced pilot and they can adjust from there. So it's kind of a cool setup that works well. And it's 1 switch to manage instead of 3. You can set up 3 if you like to separate those control surfaces. But in my experience, it's just, if you're adjusting that many switches while in flight, you're gonna tend to crash a lot. Okay, so 5, then 10, then 20, with rates dropping to 90 on the top setting, and we're gonna start in the middle. Very good. Okay, so throttle cut set, dual rates and expo are set, flaps are set. Everything is set except for timer. Let's go ahead and just do a 5-minute timer with a 1 out. That means that when I put my throttle stick over 25%, it's gonna start counting down. At 1 minute, I want voice warning. And then at 10 seconds, I want another voice warning. And then the duration, or at expiration, I want tone and vibrate with a tone every minute thereafter. Okay, very good. Clear the timer. You'll note that that does work even if you have throttle cut on. So that's kind of an interesting nuance. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we can go ahead and clear the timer. We'll lay this aside. We've got the throttle cut turned on. We'll talk about the thrust reverse. I don't know if thrust reverse is gonna be super necessary on the P-51. We haven't had a lot of problems getting this thing down in a hurry, but at the same time, if thrust reverse is available, we'll show you how to turn it on in this video. If it's not available, we'll also let you know that as well. There are some planes that, ironically enough, Horizon has said not to use thrust reverse, and we have used it and had great experience. I don't know why that is. And if it works, we use it. All right, cool. So that being said, we're gonna go ahead and flip this thing level. Why do we care? Because I don't wanna screw up the AS3X or safe. It shouldn't screw it up even if it's out of level, but I just have erred on the safe side ever since the very beginning. First revisions of safe, there was part of the startup routine was determining level. I like being level and true in flight position, not wheels on the ground position where possible. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these on real quick so you can see what they look like, which is super cool. But also these ones, I must say, of all the drop tanks, they have one of the ugliest connection points of all of them, but they work. And they're very easy to put on and very easy to take off. Also, if you find yourself in a belly landing situation where you have a gear problem or whatever, they do kind of buy you a little bit of height. which might help save the prop, but I kind of doubt it. You're pretty much screwed if your wheels are up on this plane. I would say if you're gonna do it, you flop into tall grass. All right, so real quick, let's talk about how we're gonna bind. Two ways to do it. You can shut the transmitter off and you can power while holding the bind button, or you could scroll into the bind menu after you've turned on the transmitter, in the receiver. So in this case, I'm gonna just grab my wire. Now, I want you guys to look where my elbow is. If this prop started, camera crew, what would happen?
It would run into your arm and stop.
It would be bad. I would probably get cut because I would have a tendency of pulling my arm away and it'd be bad. So what I like to do is I like to get myself in a situation where even if that thing started, worst case scenario, I can hold the plane and prevent it from cutting me or going into the wall or hitting the window or some crazy thing. I have never had that happen. No. I have been cut while screwing with planes, and I was screwing around a lot, and it was that plane right there. That Aero Commander that's sitting on top of that little bench there, that plane cut me.
Yep.
And I was doing crazy things with it. I had 2 receivers attached to the plane, and I was doing lots of weird things, and it was a very small cut, and I was very fortunate it wasn't a big plane. So just remember, anybody can get cut. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you're in any doubt, take the prop off. It's not that big a deal. Okay, so throttle cut is on. We're gonna go ahead and plug this in. I'm gonna protect myself. It shouldn't be bound, so it's not gonna really matter. But I don't trust anything until I test it. Okay, good. So now it's not starting the prop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click, scroll down to bind. I'm gonna click bind, get it ready, and then I'm gonna secure the plane, and camera crew is gonna hold so that the camera can see. I'll hold this so you can see. Bind.
Bind failed.
Bind failed. Interesting, because I didn't hit the bind button, guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to bind, I'm gonna be ready to bind, and then I'm gonna press this little button here that starts that light flashing. Sorry, I forgot to hit the bind button, guys. Now I'm gonna hit this. Okay, so it's gonna dance. I'm gonna secure the plane until such a time as I'm totally confident it's not going to move. And how do you get totally confident it's not gonna move? Auto config is done. I have a warning for flying voltage, not worried about that. I'm gonna back out of that. Now listen, how do we test it, camera crew?
Test the throttle cut.
Throttle stick up, prop didn't start. Throttle stick off, or shoot, throttle cut off, throttle stick down, and we have throttle. It's going the right direction. Throttle cuts on, sticks down, everything's been tested. Now I can trust this plane at least as far as I can throw it. Haha. So now, at this point, I can go ahead and put the canopy on, and we can check CG if we'd like. Now CG should be relatively easy to test on this plane. I wanna test with the gear down, and I wanna find out where we're gonna mark it. But let's go ahead and show the people the landing gear real quick. Oh, I needed to reverse the gear channel, and I forgot to do that. So we're gonna go into servo setup, travel, reverse, gear, okay? So gear down, gear up. Now, if you power it with the gear up and the gear are down, I believe there's like a requirement to switch, but some of the planes do, some of the planes don't. In my experience on the E-flite ones, they generally make you, if you tell them to be retracted and you turn it on, you have to actually cycle it once. But if they're out, they don't tend to retract on their own. We have had that with both types of planes though. Okay, now, the other thing is, as I move this plane, I note that AS3X is not active and it's not trying to auto level the plane, which is good. That means I can go ahead and trust that when I move my elevator, I can go ahead and hook that in. Now, the manual is gonna tell you where they expect that to be plugged in. And let's just look right now. They're saying on the elevator, they want it in the outside. That's a little bit ambiguous, even though it's sort of pointed at that hole. I wanna verify and double verify and see if they have it anywhere else. Sometimes they show it other places too. Center of gravity is 85 plus or minus 3. Yep. On the elevator, they want it on the outside, okay? It's the outside hole. Should be quite easy to do that. Now, how do we know that that's centered? This might be one of the occasions where we can just go ahead and stick it in. You guys might need to adjust this a little bit. I think I need to go out like half a turn, so I'm gonna take 3 fingers, hold this tight, really tight, and then, nope, I can't do it without, I gotta use pliers. I can't hold it hard enough. So if you have that same circumstance, then you're gonna wanna get something to hold it with. These Lyman pliers will work a little bit better than needle nose because you get more surface area and you won't mar the finish on there. Okay, so I'm gonna hold that really tight. I'm gonna unscrew this. Holy cow, that one is hard to turn. Goodness gracious. Okay, See, it's still not quite right. I'm gonna bite that thing and then spin half a turn. There we go. Now I feel like we're really, really, really close. Now if you show them from this end, you can see that's about perfect, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna slide this. Let's show the people how we're putting this in. This thing opens up. That little detent there is gonna go through and snap. Okay, now it's snapped and you can just pull this little ring. It's like a rubber ring, a little bit of fuel hose. And there you go, now your elevator works. So the next step we have to do is we have to confirm the direction of travel on all of our control surfaces. And then we're gonna go in and set up AS3X in safe. It shouldn't take but 2 seconds to do that. This is not a plug and fly after all. It should be pretty easy to set up. So I'm gonna lay this out of the way. I'm gonna throw the gear down. We're gonna put it on its wheels. And the first thing I do when I'm setting up the direction of control surfaces is I get the plane pointed the right direction. I'm gonna walk out of this menu. Elevator up, elevator down. Roll left, roll right. Yaw left, yaw right. And also you can tell the tail wheel is turning. If you want to give them a low shot so they can see that, that's turning to the left and turning to the right. So when we test the ailerons, I like to roll my radio to help give me a little bit of a visual, okay? So I roll this way, that goes up, that goes up, that goes down, okay? Okay, so everything's good there. Now let's check the flaps. Take off flaps, good deployment. Elevator corrections the correct direction. There you go, very good. Kind of noisy, but that's fine. I can live with that. All right, very, very good. Okay, so now the next step is we have to see what's going on with AS3X or safe. So obviously AS3X does not initiate until after you give the first 25% or greater throttle, which is also when your timer starts, except I happen to have my throttle cut on still. Technically, I'm gonna go ahead and take and lift the tail. I'm gonna undo my throttle cut. I'm gonna hold the tail. Okay, throttle cut's back on. AS3X is active. It's actually on all the time now, I think. See, it's not in safe, but it's definitely moving the direction I'm moving it. I can see the rudder. I can see the rudder. It's chasing that direction. It's chasing this direction, chasing that direction, chasing this direction. That's what you want to see. Elevator, chasing up, chasing down. Aileron 1, going up, going down. Aileron 2, going up, going down. Now, I'm gonna give the guys a shot. What I'm doing, camera crew is gonna try to move out of the way. She's not gonna win. See how I move this? The rudder goes to my right. The rudder goes to my left. That's the easiest one I can demonstrate. Hopefully you haven't gotten sick yet. Now, same thing with the ailerons. When I hold this camera, I'm gonna hold it so it focuses. I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna go down. It's very subtle, you won't be able to see on camera, but the elevator, maybe I can show you. Goes up, goes down. Goes up, goes down, okay? So it's very subtle, but you need to know that it's correcting in the right direction. The right direction is the direction you're moving it. So if I'm moving the plane this way, I want that rudder to point that way because it's gonna resist Mother Nature, me. Okay. All right, so now the next step is we have to set up safe, okay? And we have to make an assignment so that the plane knows what we're actually doing and when we're doing it, okay? So the first thing we'll do is we'll scroll down to forward programming. It's gonna connect, gyro settings, safe select. You can see that safe select is off. Don't be confused by this, it doesn't even matter yet. So I'm gonna set this to
AS3X mode off, safe mode, AS3X mode off, safe mode.
what did we set that to?
Position 2 on switch D.
No, I know, but I don't know what channel that is.
Oh.
Sorry guys, I don't remember what we had set to it. So I'm gonna go over to monitor mode. Nothing.
You just inhibited.
So flaps. Yep, this is auxiliary 2, so that'd be auxiliary 2 would need to be on that. So I'm gonna go back to system setup. I'm gonna disconnect RF. I'm gonna go down to channel assign, and then I'm gonna set this auxiliary 2 to switch D. Now, some of you guys are probably thinking to yourself, didn't your warning in the manual say specifically not to do that? Well, don't worry, we'll show you how to set up both, okay? So don't worry about that warning either. I thought they fixed that warning. So forward programming, connecting, gyro settings, safe select. Okay, so we have this on. I want to set this to aux2. There we go. So now you'll see that it's changing the screen and updating. Currently I want AS3X off in that mode. I want safe off in that mode.
Safe mode.
I want safe on that one.
AS3X mode.
Okay, so you'll notice my audio events are backward. How do we fix that? Because you can't change the condition on the top and bottom. You have to go into the servo setup, travel, reverse, and then reverse aux2 in this case. Okay, so now walking back out.
Volume 50. Off. Safe mode. AS3X.
Here's another telltale sign you're in or out of safe. I'm in AS3X. There's AS3X, off, and safe. See how much less throw there is on that? That's safe, off, and AS3X. Now, same thing with the roll. There's off, and there's safe.
Off. AS3X.
Okay, pretty cool. So now, the other thing you can do is you can click, go into the function list, scroll down to forward programming, and then double verify your gyro settings inside the menu where you have a visual representation of your safe select setups. So flight mode 3 evidently is now set to safe select is on. AS3X is on in AS3X mode.
Off.
Off is off.
AS3X mode. Off. Safe mode.
Safe is on. Okay. So we have everything set up right there. Now, the big question becomes, are we actually manipulating our thrust reverse via channel 7, also known as auxiliary 2, because of this condition? Let's find out right now, okay? So holding the plane to secure it, throttle cut is off. I'm gonna give some throttle. No change, no change. Okay, so we are not changing our thrust reverse setting, but I want to teach you how to do that if it's available. So the first thing you're going to want to do is verify your throttle cut's working. It is, okay? So then I'm going to clear my timer. I'm going to roll over all the way to the right. That's how you enter your setup to the avian program menu. So what I want to do is I want to use auxiliary 3 because I don't need the knob for anything, being that we don't have any gain controls on this, being that it's a bind and fly on an AR631, okay? Now, if we had an AR631, we could set up master gain on this. If we factory reset the bind and fly model on this, then we could go ahead and set up master gains, but I don't want to do that. They have been fine-tuned by the factory, and I really like the way that the AS3X comes out of the box on most every bind and fly plane we've ever had. Okay, so throttle cut's on. We have to do this process within so many seconds of power cycle, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and power cycle. We're gonna leave that off for a minute while we've got safety. I'm gonna go ahead and click and scroll down to system setup. I wanna make an assignment under channel assign, and I'm gonna unassign the right knob from auxiliary 3, and I'm gonna make an assignment to the G switch, which is right here, okay? So I'll click, highlight, and then assign it to G, okay? So now auxiliary 3 is going to be a selectable choice. Now you could also make, and this is just something I've never recommended, but you can also make, if you go in here, you can make another flight mode. Where is flight modes? Do you see it? Oh, I gotta go to system setup. You could also make another flight mode, okay? So if you wanted to, and I'm not saying you have to do this by any means, but under flight mode 2, you could make a switch G, okay? Then you could walk out and you could do a spoken flight mode. So I don't know how to do the spoken flight mode. I wonder if it's only for flight mode 1.
Oh, if you can only have one.
Yeah, because I was thinking that'd be really cool. Now,
Can you do a switch?
we can just do a switch condition, but I wanted that because it would show it on the display too.
Right.
Which would be really nice. Well, the other thing is, you see how it says enable flight modes 3? That would be, if we went to that, it would give us 6. If you went to G, it would give you, oh, it's only 5. See? So you're limited to so many. So we're not gonna do that, sorry guys, my apologies. We are gonna make this channel control auxiliary 3 which is gonna work. But then later I'll show you how to make the assignment so that the audio event will say out loud, reverse thrust, reverse thrust, reverse forward, or something like that, okay? So we're gonna talk about that in just a second. But first we have to make the assignment
Right.
to the ESC, the Avian ESC, okay? Because it doesn't come out of the box with this. Now, pause for a second, as in not you, camera crew, but pause for a second and think about safety. What are the concerns with thrust reverse and a prop-driven plane, camera crew?
You don't always have full, you have to be in control. You
have to be able to control the
prop is.
plane, you have to know what your switch settings are, and you have to be able to stop it from getting away from you. So just be careful. Thrust reverse can be one of the more dangerous tools that we have in our tool bag, but just remember, thrust reverse is more dangerous than forward reverse. It's just unusual. So you need to know what you're doing when you do thrust reverse. If you don't know what you're doing, just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
You know, especially on an EDF plane, you could do thrust reverse all day. You're not gonna get hurt unless you stick something really long and skinny in there, which would be a bummer. But I would say with a prop-driven plane, we don't ever set up pilot fatigue because it's just a dangerous condition where we flip that switch and it's full throttle. You don't want to get cut up. Okay, so now that we've said the normal warning, do it all at your own risk. Okay, so I'm going to plug in the power. Actually, I want to get the screen scrolled all the way over. And I was just looking outside, noticing it won't even be available yet. So now I'm gonna plug this in. Camera crew is going to be careful because she's in harm's way if something would go wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll over. Stupid warning. Okay, step one, low throttle, up elevator, left aileron. Right aileron. Okay, now we just use this stick. There you go, reverse. Now we need to make our assignment of our channel. This is not forward programming, by the way. So if you watch my stick position moves and you have a NX8, you can actually do it technically, I believe. Active forward. There's a governor level that you're probably supposed to change, but I'm not gonna mess with it. So this needs to be channel 8. Now, exit with save. Secure the plane, knowing that if something was gonna go wrong, it would go wrong now. Hasn't gone wrong yet, so we're gonna shut off that warning next, but let's go ahead and walk all the way over to the normal setup. Okay, throttle cut's on, we're testing throttle cut. It's working, good. Throttle cut's off. Forward thrust for sure, you saw the canopy change. I'm gonna go a little bit. Now I'm gonna switch thrust reverse to reverse. Nothing changed. Now it's in reverse. That's still forward. That's reverse. As you can see, then this is forward. Nope, this is forward. Okay, that's forward. Throttle cut's on. Now, why are the switches all weird like that? Because that's the way that the thrust reverse is set up, and I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. And I'm just looking outside, seeing that it's like actually possible, flyable.
Oh.
So I'm gonna clear the timer, I'm gonna click, I'm gonna scroll down to servo setup. And we wanna look, actually, we don't wanna go to servo setup, we just wanna walk over one to monitor, and we wanna see what we're in. So the forward thrust is minus 100. We've talked about this a million times if you guys have followed the channel. That's 0, and that's plus 100. So what I wanna do is I wanna go into digital switch setup and change the conditions of that switch. So in this position, I want that to be forward, so that's gonna be minus 100. Once we get that to minus 100, that means that when my switch is going forward, it's gonna be forward thrust. Then I want this to be plus 100, and that'll be reverse thrust. And then I want this one also to be reverse thrust, which is gonna be plus 100. Yes, I know it's confusing because why would you want plus 100 for reverse thrust? You'll take that up with Spectrum, okay? So now, walk out of the menu, digital switch setup. I'm gonna go into this, and then I'm gonna just scroll to next. See, you can see all of them there at once, which is nice.
Oh.
And then next, there's more, okay? So then you can also do an audio event, and the audio event's gonna look something like this, and it's gonna be switch changes, add new event, highlight that, switch G. So that's forward, so I'm gonna see if I can find forward, and we'll come right back. Okay, so I'm gonna go to normal, and then I'm gonna put this in probably, we don't have like forward and reverse, and so I don't know if you guys have come up with some creative way to use vernacular. This is one of the times, and we had one with the F-14 where we just really had trouble coming up with something. I think I'm gonna put like braking. Braking would be the closest thing that we can come up with. So I'm gonna do braking here, and then I'm also gonna do braking here. Okay, so.
Braking, normal mode.
Okay, so that's all there is. At some point, I'm gonna figure out how to make a new audio event so that I can control that and say forward thrust, reverse thrust, reverse thrust, forward thrust, reverse thrust, pilot fatigue, something like that. But anyway, for the time being, this plane is completely set up, ready to fly, and hopefully we've answered all your questions about exactly how to do it. Now, understanding that there's a million other things you could do if you wanted to on this particular plane or other planes like it, especially if it's set up as a plug and fly, we appreciate you guys being part of this. And we understand that you may want to do things a little bit different. We never mean for this video to be a direct replacement for playing with the transmitter, learning new and exciting ways to take full advantage of this expensive tool. But for most of you, you just as soon download a bind and fly profile and then just fly it. Don't do that. Learn to use this tool. It's the most important tool in your tool bag when it comes to radio controlled aircraft, especially if you're a big fan of e-flite and DSMX equipped planes. So throttle cuts off, forward thrust, reverse thrust, reverse thrust. As you can see, it's working. Throttle cuts back on, sticks down, takeoff flaps, landing flaps, ailerons, elevator, rudder, all the different modes. Everything is literally ready to rock. I can't wait to fly this thing. You guys have already probably seen it because we published that video 1 minute before this video. And we hope that you guys enjoyed this and got everything you needed out of it. If you don't like this plane or you want a different style of plane, maybe you've got the older version of the P-51, June Knight V1, or maybe you've got one previous to that. You can follow along these videos and generally do the same setup. If it's an older bind and fly, there might be some small differences, but just keep in mind the best thing that you can do to keep yourself as safe as possible and have the best flight outcomes would be to update your firmware on this and update your firmware on the receiver if there is any doubt. And that should get you really close to what you're watching on these videos, but we do leave them up forever. So the problem is this might be 6, 7 years old when you're watching it. So I apologize if something's changed. I don't have my crystal ball working anymore. So at this point, I have to assume that you guys are gonna know that and make good decisions. But at the same time, we hope you enjoyed the video. We hope you are able to follow along. And if you're really struggling because I went too fast, click the gear, change the playback speed to either 0.5 or 0.25. The audio should still be supported. I'll just sound like this instead. And it will still be helpful for you. And if I'm going way too slow for you, you can go ×2 and I'll sound like this and it'll be really amazing. But either way, we want to help you guys, whether you're in the hobby for the last 20 years or you're in the hobby for the last 20 minutes and everybody in between. That's what we want to do is we want to get people using their transmitter. We forgot one thing. We're going to shut off that super annoying warning.
Oh.
Let's talk about the super annoying warning.
And we should see what you have for telemetry.
Okay.
Go out and fly.
Telemetry. There you go. You got full telemetry. Amazing. Very good. Individual cell counts, all that stuff. So we're gonna click, we're gonna go down to, what were we looking at?
The warning.
Telemetry, so that's under audio events or telemetry. So audio events, telemetry warnings, smart battery. Startup volts, don't care. Overcharge, don't care. Imbalance, don't care. Okay?
And that's why your battery looks like that one over there.
Possibly. Just because there's a warning doesn't mean I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, guys, hopefully that answered all your questions. We love doing this stuff for you here on Brian Phillips RC. We have tons of content, literally thousands of videos, brianphillipsrc.com. Check it out. We've got coupon codes all the time there. If you're looking to buy something, you want to save $1, you can check it out there. But in the video description below, you can see links to this plane, the battery we chose, and the transmitter we used. And we do that for pretty much every video we've ever done, including the old stuff. Every once in a blue moon, things aren't in stock. We apologize. We don't know how to fix that. It's been kind of a thing lately. And so please don't hate on us for it because we don't control when these things are in stock and out of stock. But the good news is we reviewed so many different planes. There's a huge selection and you can find what you want. If you go to brianphillipsrc.com, it'll help you sort through the plethora of aircraft we've done. If you want to become a Patreon and help support us directly with financial gifts rather than buying planes, that's another way you can help support us financially. It's in the links in the video description below, also on our website, as well as PayPal if you like one-time gifts. You don't like the monthly thing with Patreon. But just to be clear, the best way you can help us is watch the videos, like them, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and obviously come back for more. But then when you see a plane that you even remotely like, buy from the links in the video description below. That helps us to build clout with the companies that we do work with. And it also helps us to make some money on the side, which helps to fund the channel because we make small commissions from the sales of these products. But we never want you to buy something you don't like. And if we don't like it, you'll be able to tell because I don't fake very well.
True.
Okay, so hopefully you like this video, guys. Thanks so much for coming back. We have tons more, huge amounts of videos coming from Brian Phillips RC, and we hope you'll be here in front of your computer or on your cell phone or whatever it is in your office cubicle pretending to do real work. We'll be here for you. Stay tuned.